Hi, and welcome to Two Wheels Better from the offices of Motorcycle News in Kettering. Motorcycle News, the world's #1, so they say, and it must be #1 at something because 140,000 people every week buy it. We're here to find out just what makes Motorcycle News tick, so follow me and we'll find out just what's what. Adam, the world's #1. #1 at what?
Well, as we say on the front, the world's #1 is because we are the biggest selling motorcycle publication in the world. But also that with that, we've got the prestige and authority. It means that actually we are the #1 when it comes to things like the Japanese factories, Italian, all the motorcycle factories around the world look at Motorcycle News as setting the standards, really.
Yeah, they're all always happy to quote it, aren't they, Motorcycle News, as an authority. The Brits are represented by MCN, and this must be of great satisfaction to you.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we are a British-based publication. Everything we write is for our readers who are 99% British. But it is nice to know that, you know, we have got the power and influence that we can really make a difference in the motorcycle industry.
And can I ask you, the role of the editor today, especially of Motorcycle News, a big paper like this, is it really a sort of it's not a hands-on, but it's not exactly hands-off, is it? Are you more of a man manager, a business manager, or how does it fit in?
Well, I mean, what we've got here editorially, when we've got a full team, we've got 32 staff, all split up into various teams, and there's no way I can go and read through every single word that's in the paper. That's why I have people like sub-editors and deputy editor. Basically what I do is I get involved with the initial part of the paper, with the planning process, what's going to go in the next few issues, managing how much space each of the stories are going to get, and also right at the end I check the pages off before they go to make sure that there's nothing wrong with them, make sure that it's the style and tone. But, you know, mainly my real job is motivating the staff here, looking after the team. They're the people that actually write the stories, they're the people that do the designs and the photography, and planning long term, you know, deciding what Motorcycle News is going to do in the future, deciding what our stance is on various topics, and it's great fun.
Adam, before I go and see the reporters out there and see what they're up to, can we have a look at your archives, if that's not too personal a question?
Yeah, let's go and have a look.
Well, we're down in the archive room now, where all the old records are kept and photographs and God knows what else. Just what have we got here, Adam?
Well, we've basically got the world's biggest archive of motorcycling, mainly photographs going back right to the dawn of motorcycling, magazines, periodicals of the time, right up to the current day, and things like handbooks and brochures and manuals on any bike you could just about name, really.
So you got the Motorcycle News obviously going back to the beginning, and
yeah.
Where do we find those?
Right, well, I find the first ever edition of MCN. It's something top secret we've never seen before.
And do you have to have a licence to drive these?
Bike licence suffices. Right, back in... These are the first ever editions of MCN. What we've actually got is the issue before the first issue.
Let's just have a look at that. What's that front page there then?
These are all... This is a dummy. So this was how Motorcycle News actually started, with that's the space where the front page story was.
Very conservative title at the top there.
And then from that you get on to the first dummy, which had some stories in to see how the first edition of Motorcycle News could look.
So this would have been something that they would have knocked together, really. The copy makes sense, but it was just a design job.
Yeah, and that's what they'd take around to advertisers to sell them things like this. Oh. And that, of course, a week later was followed by the very first edition of MCN, Jeff Duke Suspended. So that's Wednesday, 30th November, 1955. The MCN was produced at Fleet Street in London then, but 2 years later it moved up here to Kettering. Every single edition of MCN up to the current day is kept in bound volumes. We've got several sets of them as well, so this is a working set, which I'm allowed to pour through it with my grubby fingers. But there are brand new ones down the end as well, which we just keep for posterity. The real beauty of the archive is we've got bound volumes of virtually every motorcycle magazine ever back to 1903, but the beauty is the actual original photographs themselves, most of which are actually older than you.
Thanks, Adam. You mean that's sort of what, 1960, something like that?
No, back to 1903, 1904, that's what we got pictures to.
You've already told me it's everything's stored alphabetically, but we thought we'd pick on Triumph. Just how far back does Triumph go?
OK, let's have a look. Right.
This is pre-595, this, isn't it?
Yeah, just about. Right, Triumph, Veteran and Vintage. Let's have a look. We've got hundreds and hundreds of pictures of Triumphs, twins, all sorts, everything.
You must be worried if these are the originals. What happened? They're getting a bit crinkly and a bit fragile, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. We're considering putting them all onto CD-ROM, moving into the digital age, but it's going to be a long time to do, and we've already got copies of most of these anyway.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it's a highly valuable asset, and it's quite a treasure, and I bet people from around the world are after these, aren't they?
Yes, we used these pictures are used in books, all sorts of publications, magazines from all over the world. They all know, anyone around the world who's into classic bike publishing knows that MCN's the place to come for all their old pictures.
Well, on that commercial, we'll end that. I have Rob McDonnell with me. He's deputy editor. Rob, if Adam's the editor, what does the deputy editor do?
Well, Adam's role is more strategic. He looks after the sort of overall policy of the newspaper, goes out dealing with the industry, making sure that MCN's name is advertised properly and widely. My job is a more day-to-day one of making sure the newspaper comes out every Wednesday morning, basically. So I look after basically all the copy that we have in the paper, the design, the production, etc., with the help of a very talented team, of course.
How does it all work? Is there a start day?
Well, production of Motorcycle News is basically a 7-day process. It never stops, and we come out 52 weeks of the year, so it's a 365-day process. At any one day, we're working on one particular page of Motorcycle News, whether it be this weekend, for example. We've got reporters away in Japan and in Italy covering the Grand Prix and World Superbikes, down to this morning, which is our actual press day, when we have to finish everything off and get the newspaper onto the printing press. But even today, there are people working on next week's issue rather than this week's issue, and that process carries on throughout the 7 days until we start all over again next Monday.
So a completely rolling process. I bet one day blurs into the other. How do you keep track of all this?
Well, life seems to go very quickly, actually, when you're working on it, especially during the summer when you've got a lot of big sport events. But to keep track of the whole process, obviously, you have to have some decent planning. You can't just go along ad lib, otherwise you'd end up on Monday with great big holes and you'd miss the printing press, which is something MCN's never done in its 41-year history.
Well, I'm now sitting with Andy Carlton. He's the chief sub, and he's going to tell me what he does to the stories. Doesn't sound very good, that, does it? But well, what do you do to the stories, Andy?
Well, first of all, check through the stories to make sure that we've got the right angle that we're looking at, that it's written in an exciting way, it's going to impress the readers, and that it makes sense, that it's factually correct, and there's no spelling mistakes or literals. The next job really then is to do a headline for the story, and then it goes to our team of designers who design the page. From that point, we then have to sort of look at it again and make it fit the page, make sure the headline fits the page as well correctly, and that it reflects the story.
Is there any interrelation between yourself and the guy who's written the editorial copy?
Oh yeah, if I've got any queries at all, or there's something I don't understand, or if there's something missing, then obviously I'll go back to the reporter who's written it and have a chat with them. I mean, on this story that we're looking at here, we're actually building in quotes of this all the time, and it's actually changed the story a little bit. So I'm going to have a chat with him in a minute, and we'll go through this again and just slightly re-nose it.
Do you get any arguments then if someone says, "What are you doing to my story?"
Yeah, good-natured kind of arguments. A reporter might have written it in a certain way, and I might think that perhaps we need to look at it in a different way, and therefore rewrite the first few parts or something. And there's sometimes a bit of friendly banter about that, but nothing too heated.
And you win in the end, do you?
Normally, not always.
Mark, can I just interrupt a second? Mark Potter, Ace Road Tester. That is you, I've got the right one.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Apparently.
Mark, what's going on at the moment? I see that copy from Andy Ibbott on there.
Yeah, this is copy Andy's written over the weekend.
Over the weekend? Overtime?
Yeah, that doesn't exist, unfortunately. Commitment to the job. So I'm just checking it through for accuracy before it goes over to production desk and makes it to the paper.
Motorcycle News, famous for its road tests. How do you do it all? I mean, I don't suppose you have to go scrounging bikes, do you? You sort of bikes thrown at you.
Not necessarily thrown at us. I mean, sometimes we have difficulty finding older bikes, but I mean, we normally get first ride on the new bikes, which is what we're trying to do all the time. Get scoop rides as often as possible and beat the other magazines to the first rides. We're constantly striving to come up with fresh ideas, new angles on testing bikes, and if there's no new bike, then we try and create a top road test with something new and maybe put it in a shootout against its rival, something like that. It's quite a long process planning it, but get there in the end. We try to get at least 500 miles on each test bike. Basically, the more miles you do, the easier it is to write, and the more comprehensive your test. So 500 miles is really the minimum we strive for. Often you're just sort of picking hairs between bikes, and it's only evident faults on bikes when you jump from one to the other. But I mean, normally we store it in our heads which bikes are good and why they're good, and you can normally feel, once you've ridden enough, you can feel the differences between them.